Hello and welcome to the Story Engine podcast. My name is Kyle Gray, and today on the show we have Ravi Sawhney. Ravi is the founder of RKS Design and the creator of Psychoesthetics. We're going to talk about psychoesthetics and how it is used to infuse human experiences and ideas into physical products and services. It's a very interesting and unique conversation today. So without any further ado, let's hand it over to Ravi. Ravi Sawhney, welcome to the Story Engine podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I am excited to showcase. You've got a really unique skill set and wisdom and principles that I don't think we've heard from somebody quite like you on the show before. But to start us off, will you tell us a bit about who you are and how you're showing up in the world today?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I'm a trained industrial designer. Came out of Xerox and Xerox PARC in the 70s, developing the first touchscreen graphical user interface. And in 1980, didn't like corporate life, so I left and started my own firm. So I started a firm called RKS Design in 1980, and for the past now 45 years, have been working in all sorts of innovation, all kinds of challenges, all kinds of interesting projects, and incubated a few companies along the way. So I show up as a thought leader, I guess is what people say, in human-centered innovation. And my methodology, goes back now 33 years. But the underpinning of human-centered methodology started in 1982 when I wrote the underpinning for the firm, which we still use today, that it's not how you feel about a design or experience, it's how it makes you feel about yourself. So we have been so human-focused for decades, and it's affected everything we do and all the success we've created for ourselves and clients.
This is language that I've used, but I'm much more of a layman in the specific worlds of design that you're deep in. And right now I feel that kind of design is really more needed. And I feel that as technology is progressing, and this is more in an internet space or a marketer space, but I think it's impacting our physical world, that it's not necessarily human centered, it's algorithm centered or click centered. And I think there's lots of opportunities to reinstate these principles in so many different elements of our lives.
Yeah, that's correct. That's really correct, that as technology's been advancing, and especially with AI, that things are becoming, I guess, homogenized, or they're lacking the texture and the richness that we love in life.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's music or whether it's art, there's something synthetic that we sense. We may not articulate it, but we sense it and we feel it. That's something's just not right. And what's missing is absolutely that human element. Can a machine create and understand emotion?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, it could read my face and say that based on heat sensing and how your face looks, that this is how I might feel. But in the world of design, innovation, branding, you have to be able to predict and project how are you going to make someone feel. So, being able to even, read their eyes or their pupils or their body temperature, yeah, that can tell you something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But what are you going to do? Run a million tests to see what's really happening? You still have to synthesize that into something you're going to do for them.
Yes.
And we're all advancing. I mean, I will leave this conversation being a different person than I was before we started it, because that's how we advance as humans. We're constantly learning, constantly advancing, and technology can only look at where we are today or where we were.
That sounds almost like a principle, something that's universal that you've learned with many different things. If things are always advancing, we're always growing. That's a principle of human-centered innovation. or I would imagine so. Are there other principles and commonalities and patterns that you've seen over the many decades of your work in that anyone can really understand and apply to whatever they're doing?
Yeah, I think there are some. Along the way, we started working with someone who became a very close friend, Dr. Bob Deutsch, who's a cultural anthropologist, and he has doctorates in anthropology and psychology. And he taught us part of the human interaction is that we're always looking at anything that is coming into our world and saying, is it like me? Does it like me? Can it make me more? And we're constantly going through this test, and it starts the moment we're born, that we find our mother and we breastfeed. That is it like me? Does it like me? Can it make me more? That's kind of an ongoing litmus test for everything we do, that we have to, and that's where the emotion comes in. Our emotion allows us to filter out all the massive information and stimuli and really get down to things that mean something to us. I would say that underpinning, tied in with what I wrote in '82. As Maya Angelou said, people forget what you said, people forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's all comes back to what is the human experience. What is the human condition? Why do we constantly need to grow and evolve? At a micro level, and beyond.
Absolutely. And or like why or what reason, and that brings me to another question. You've seen these principles applied in many ways. You've worked with many different organizations. And I'm curious, what are the commonalities in the problems or the symptoms of problems that they experience that human-centered innovation is really the solution? What would somebody be going through to be like, I need to call Ravi right now?
Oh boy, that could be any number of things. It could be, an inspiration of why are things the way they are,
Mm,
and something that's in their own lives. It could be, a technology group that says, we need a team that can understand people in a way that leads us to forward-looking thinking and future modeling, that creates more of a predictive model that we can understand and that can address the future of the market, or create a future market in a way that is beneficial for those people, and for the company or the service or the society or the non-for-profit that's providing that. I
mm-hmm,
mean, it truly is universal. I mean, we look at it even in politics, that a politician is really selling a service.
100%.
And our methodology, we're applying it now to candidates, and saying, okay, who's your target audience? What do they really need? What do they aspire to? What's their emotional content? How can you create messages that really resonate? Especially in today's society, people seem to they don't get the message right. They so, and that applies to products and services and brands. It's just understanding people, and it can't be this trial and error craziness that people go through.
Mm-hmm. So just to echo these back and simplify it, one is they're inspired to change something, or they want to see a better future in a very specific place. There's something in the world that causes them pain or distress. They see a fearful or uncertain or risky future that they're not quite sure how to navigate, and they want more clarity in the choices that they make moving towards this future. And it's harder and harder to resonate and stand out in the modern world.
Yeah, that would be half the equation. Half the
Okay.
equation, I think, would be, as we say, pain avoidance, dealing with fear. And the other side is more of the reward, the aspirational side.
Yeah, tell me those.
Um, that, why did I buy this sweater? Did I did I physically need a new sweater? Was I really out in the cold? No, I bought it because it internally, gave me some level of affirmation. So one side is that, yeah, people can be very motivated in dealing with fear and addressed by fear. And when we talk about politics, that's definitely a tool that's being used. But the other side is that we're all looking for personal affirmations. One of the big tools that we leverage is the hero's journey. And how did we interpret the hero's journey? That it's actually for us a design process. So how do you attract? How do you engage? How do you trigger adoption? And then how do you create a fulfilling moment of truth? And that moment of truth changes how you feel about yourself, your body language. You might even decide that you're going to tell the world about your discovery, your decisions, your affirmations. We're all really looking for affirmation in each other.
Hmm.
Even this moment, I'm looking for affirmation from you, right? So that's the essence that design brings to the world is, yeah, resolving the negative, the pain points. We translate pain points into help me statements so that, you take the problem and you say, okay, but what can you do for that person? And in those cases, it evolves your thinking about doing something for someone other than just stopping the suffering, stopping the pain, stopping the fear. You really want to get them to a much healthier place.
Yeah. So, in developing and working in this theory and framework over these many years, what are the things that you're most proud of? What's different about this approach? What are the most unique things that you would like to highlight that makes what you do stand out in the world?
We've talked about this, we've talked about this, over drinks with friends and collaborators, partners. I think that in the process, and it's a very formal process, but it's a very open process. What makes, I always say me and my firm, because we're a team of people, what makes it unique is that we're always able to discover the deeper meaning in something. So it's not about this water bottle. It's the deeper meaning of how we framed the water to
Hmm.
beautify the water. And so I think that's what's kind of special. And I've always believed that that kind of positivity in design somehow carries through. I don't know how it carries through. um, and but in the visual language that's developed, there's always deeper meaning. We're always able to trigger positive memories. When we're doing cooking appliances, we're trying to make the appliances trigger memories of your mother's cooking or your grandmother's cooking, right? That
Hmm.
how, and that, that you should feel like I can almost smell my grandmother's cookies, those, and you do it in a modern, advanced way, but you keep one foot in the past
Hmm.
so that you have a point of reference, and that makes you just feel great about yourself. We all love something that is, known to us, but we see it in a fresh new way, right? I mean, that's what comedians do, right? They take something we overlook every day and they point out something we never saw, like
Yeah,
how silly or funny it is. And that makes us feel great about ourselves.
I love that. Ravi, I'm curious about you and your personal experience. If there's been a time in your life where you were inspired or desired to change something in the world, maybe it was right around 1982 when you were tired of corporate life and wanted to go out and make your impact your way, and you wanted to create, or you felt maybe there was risk in this or an uncertain and fearful future that you desired clarity for, and you wanted to stand out in a crowded world. When have you felt the same things in your life?
I think probably, yeah, I wasn't fearful um when I started the firm, which is actually 1980. I mean, I was just kind of, young and dumb. I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and I didn't care that I had this, incredible job at Xerox that was, high comp and all everything else. It
Yeah.
wasn't for me, and so I took the leap. But I took the leap knowing that I could always go back to college. I could always, you know, learn to be a waiter or a carpenter, whatever.
Yeah.
But it was really in '92 when I said I'm going to put a stake in the ground. And I'm going to declare that I have this approach called psychoesthetics, that brings humanity into the mix in a different way. And people scoffed and said, that's an oxymoron. Design and science, or art and science, are opposite ends of the spectrum. And those kind of dialogue, was coming out. But I knew in my heart that this is the right approach, that it's all about people, because I was thrown into a think tank with 30 PhD psychologists back at Xerox. And you learn that it's all human factors. It's all about the people. We couldn't motivate people to touch a TV screen to make that had buttons drawn on it without understanding people, because we grew up learning don't ever touch the TV screen or you get your hands slapped, and stay away from the TV screen because it's got radiation and
Hmm.
you'll get cancer.
Oh,
The crazy stuff that you heard, growing up in the 60s. And so, that was definitely something. And I had clients saying, it's a bunch of psychobabble, you know. But when we created a design, and that person who said that, in the 90s, that light, that was a medical room light. I still see them today. They're still making that today. And when we did Teddy Ruxpin in 1985, if you know what Teddy Ruxpin was an animated toy, the talking teddy bear that came out in '85, still sells to this today. First year sales were almost 100 million. Second year sales were almost over 300 million, and it was an animated teddy bear. And I was asked to design all of it. They basically had this ugly bear that had a cassette player in it, and it moved the mouth and the eyes, and it talked. And at that time I said, well, you got to make things come to life. And so what if it just looks like a cuddly teddy bear and you don't even see any technology? And then it just starts talking to you and telling you stories. And we at that time we created an end cap for Toys R Us that had a motion detector, and the teddy bear would just sit there, and you'd walk down the aisle, and all of a sudden it would open its eyes and say, "Hi, I'm Teddy Ruxpin."
hmm.
And people would stop dead in their tracks. You couldn't buy one; they were sold out everywhere you went. But it was understanding that, how do you create this? I guess that's one of the things I learned, is that we love what's called conceal and reveal. Things that are one thing, and because we've taken some action, it becomes something else. Gardening is a great example, right? We bring that plant to life. It was a seed, and then it's so magical when you see it pop up out of the ground, right?
What was one of the most surprising places or one of the proudest moments where you saw something that you had a hand in designing out in the real world?
Oh, probably the RKS guitar. Because what we did was we looked at how they were using tone woods on the rainforest to create great sounding guitars. And so we reinvented the electric guitar using cellulose based plastics, that are basically farm raised wood pulp, turned into plastic. And we created a line of electric guitars that are played by Clapton, the Stones, the Who, the Eagles, Dave Mason of Traffic. The list just goes on and on. And we created something that's going to be around for decades and decades, possibly hundreds of years, that people write and play music on. And that was very magical, to create something that could be that important. Because for me, music is everything. Music changed my world. I believe music changed the world. I think music's the universal language for everyone everywhere. And to make a device, a product that has a part in making music that could change the world, is probably the most, I think, the most influential thing that I've done, and probably one of the single most proud thing that we've done. We've done a lot of beneficial things, but creating an electric guitar that people like the Rolling Stones pick up and play and love, that's pretty phenomenal.
I love it. Robbie, would you like to hear your story?
I'd love to hear my story.
It's 1992, and I'm putting my stake in the ground. Finally, declaring my vision for psychoesthetics. It was a blend of art and science. And immediately there were haters. People laughed at me. People mocked at blending these two ideas and these two worlds together. But this was me. It was everything I loved. Spending years in engineering and design, science, and I loved music that impacted and changed my life, art. And I knew in my heart that this was the right choice. And even though the future wasn't exactly clear where everything was going to come from, how it was all going to fit together, I knew that what I was doing was important in the world. After not too much time, I got an opportunity for a deeply intimate human experience. People came to me with an ugly teddy bear that had a cassette player inside of it, technology and wires and just nothing that fun. And they came to me with the challenge of making it come to life. They wanted to make something interesting and fun, but didn't quite know how to do it. They weren't sure how to stand out in a marketplace of so many other toys and resonate in the society. And we started by creating a human experience of understanding what the design would be. What if we got rid of the technology on the surface and just made a friendly teddy bear that would start telling you stories right away? We came up with an idea of an end cap with a motion detector that made people light up, or the teddy bears light up, and people as well as they would walk by. And I saw this ability to discover the deeper meaning of things. It wasn't just a teddy bear, but an experience within it. And to create positivity in design that carries through, that triggers memories and human experiences. And over the course of the last 3 decades and a lot of costly and painful mistakes, I have been on a journey to discover and master this process in everything. And one of the biggest, most proudest moments of seeing not only something that could trigger memories, but create more memories and human experiences is seeing a new design of guitars using cellulose-based plastics, farm-raised wood pulp, used our designs used by the Rolling Stones, the Eagles, many of the famous bands that I grew up on and were so excited to listen to. Now creating memories and art and stories for millions and millions and millions of people all over the world. Now, for me, this design has led most of my life, and I have applied these ideas to everything in the world to create more of these human experiences. And I would love to help you build a human design or a human-centered innovation into your next product.
Pretty nice.
All right.
It's product and service is probably better, since
Yeah.
a lot of what the design work we do is service related.
Mm-hmm.
For Freddie Mac, we developed and used our methodology to take the 5,000 down payment assistance programs available that the loan brokers don't know about and can't figure out, and brought it in a way that they can help people be first time home buyers. So who would have guessed that there's that many programs that if you only have, uh, you know, 0% or 5% to put down on your first time home purchase, that there are government programs to help you.
Mm.
A-
Yeah,
and and loan brokers would just tell you, sorry, you can't get a loan, you don't have enough down payment.
definitely.
And so, that's a service that, changes people's lives. So,
Yeah,
at the end, if you can increase the quality of life for someone, what's that worth?
I love that. And yeah, I'm sure there's, like you said, there's so many different applications and designs, and we might shift or change that to reflect whoever's in the, what would best resonate with the audience and have apply the human-centered design even to the story we tell. Um, But Ravi, this has been a fascinating and fun exploration through a lot of different cases of this and ideas. Do you have any closing thoughts for us today? And where can we go to learn more about you?
So, rksdesign.com is the website. I think there's a Wikipedia page on me that seems to get updated.
That's cool.
And then on the website, if they look up psychoesthetics, they'll see there's books available that I've published on Amazon. I have a book that was published by Wharton Publishing. There's a Harvard case study on the methodology. There's a Harvard classroom exercise on the methodology. But the website is really good. It really shows what we do and how we did it, and what the process was and what the outcome was. And
Amazing.
we just try to teach people as best we can.
Awesome. And closing thoughts for us?
Just thank you for your interest and invitation to be on the podcast, and look forward to what happens next.
Awesome. Ravi Sawhney, thank you so much for joining us on the Story Engine podcast.
Thank you, Kyle. Bye bye.